Thank you, everybody, for that wonderful introduction. I'm really excited to talk with you guys today about my experience with Aspire. I'd like to start with asking everybody to just close your eyes. Now, think about your childhood. Take yourself back, really immerse yourself. Think about your house, think about your belongings, your room, your bed, your clothes, your baby blankets or your doll. Think of all the memories that you have in that house. Now imagine having all of those things ripped from your life. Imagine over the course of a few hours, losing everything except for the clothes on your back, the shoes on your feet, and your family. According to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, losing one's home and property can lead to depression and elevated levels of distress. In 2010, my family experienced a house fire which destroyed 90% of our worldly possessions. But what we lost in physical things, in materials, we gained in perspective. We live in a world where people are always on the go, focusing on themselves. This often makes it difficult to slow down and remember the important things in life. I'm sure many of you have screened calls from your mom or ignored that Snapchat from your sister. But once you lose everything, and you think you need to live, you realize what's truly important. In order for you to better understand your childhood, your home, and your family, I'm going to share the lessons I learned after I lost my childhood home to fire. Appreciation for life, importance of family, and that ultimately, life goes on. On December 16th of 2010, I was working on my journalism final. My mom and my little sister were going to bed. My dad was downstairs. I think he was sleeping or watching baseball. And my older sister was out of the house. But my mom and my little sister heard a scratching sound in the wall. Now, we live out in the middle of nowhere, so we assumed that it was just rodents. We had mice before. But it was really bugging her. And so she yelled down to my dad and asked him to go check it out. And what he did was he went outside, and he ran back in, and he screamed. He screamed in the whole house that the house is on fire. At that point, I ran downstairs, grabbing my sister. We ran out of the house. She grabbed our cat. We were told to get in our car, where I spent the longest night of my life. Throughout that time, my mom and dad were running in and out of the house, grabbing personal possessions, photographs from the walls, and just personal mementos. I'm sure many of you are thinking about your school photos and that awkward phase you might have had in 7th grade. But those photos are more than photos. They're memories. And I'm sure that as college students, many of you brought photos or baby blankets or other childhood possessions that are close to you to college. I mean, many of you indicated that those possessions are very important to you in the survey. But imagine losing those things forever. At that point, the entire roof of my house burst into flame. But the fire department was nowhere to be found. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security reports an estimated 377,900 residential building fires reported each year. And according to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, children and families experience a range of emotional reactions, from distress and anxiety when reminded of the fire and increased worry about the safety of loved ones. That morning, early morning, like 12 a.m., my older sister is finally home, and she runs to the truck to check on me and my little sister. Eventually, our neighbors wake up, and they check on us as well. But that's the point where I learned that no one knows where my mom is. And I had been strong for my little sister until that point. But when I thought that my mom was trapped in that house, as it was burning, I lost control, and I broke down. But my mom was found by my neighbor and my sister, and they came and they told us that she was fine. And that's really when I learned to appreciate everything. My mom was okay, but I had experienced that fear and that sadness of that loss. The importance of family is really what I gained from this experience. And early that next morning, after spending the night at my neighbor's house, which they gratefully opened to us, That was the first and only time I've ever seen my dad cry. And he cried out of guilt. He felt guilty for that house fire. But what he didn't understand, what we didn't understand, but what Dr. Charles Figley understood as a pioneer of the modern study of trauma said, though less studied, families also experience trauma simultaneously as a result of human causes, including fires. As a result, everyone is a fellow survivor and is able to appreciate and provide effective and knowledgeable support. There is little blaming the victim, because everyone in the family is a victim. Families affected simultaneously by disaster are able to help each other to overcome the emotional horrors, to rebuild, and to recognize any valuable lessons that can be learned. At that point, extended family came into town to offer support and aid as we went through the rubble that remained of our house. That night, we were set up in a hotel thanks to the Red Cross, and we spent time together as a family, really relishing in the fact that we still had each other, and that was all that we needed. At that point, we had to realize that life went on. That next Monday, my dad went to work, but while he was going to work, he hit another car. That day, my sisters and I tried to go get clothes so that we could, leave the hotel. And we got into a car accident as well. We went into the ditch. And then we spent Christmas in a hotel with just a little tree, no presents, because they were all destroyed in the fire. And I'm sure many of you are thinking back to those mornings, those Christmas mornings when you sat in your living room in your jammies and opened all those presents. But that's not what's important. What was important to me was that my family was there, and that was the greatest gift of all. Dr. Catherine Gohl, a clinical psychologist, said that following a residential fire, children often experience a general loss of resources, including possessions, time, support, and a feeling of safety, in addition to the initial loss of resources following the fire, may later be exacerbated by losses incurred from a temporary move in housing or because of resources lost by family members. But we didn't lose everything. We still had each other. And as I look back on this formative experience of my life, I just have a few lessons to share with you. First, garner an appreciation for life, because you never know what's going to happen. Second, remember that family is a support system that can never be replaced. And third, even after loss or trauma, life goes on and life gets better. Thankfully, my family was able to rebuild and learn that we are more important than the possessions that we worked so hard to get. Things are replaceable. People are not.